All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome out to the Student Center on the campus of Norfolk State University for today's Battle at the Bay football press conference. As this week we get set for the 53rd meeting all-time between local rivals Hampton University and Norfolk State University. This week's game kicks off at 4 p.m. on Saturday at William Dick Price Stadium. Tickets can be purchased by logging on to NSU-SpartansTickets.com or purchasing on campus from the NSU Tickets Center. Today we'll get to hear from both head football coaches of these two football programs. We'll also have some student athletes who are in attendance as well. But first, to kick things off with some opening remarks, I'd like to introduce NSU Athletics Director Marty Miller.
All right, thank you, Matt. Good afternoon to everyone in attendance. On behalf of our president, Mr. Eddie N. Moore Jr., and the family of Norfolk State, we would like to welcome everyone to this great campus, the home of the mighty Spartans. And we are glad you're here, and we know we're about to engage in a very important football game this Saturday. This is always a fun event for those of us who've been involved with this for years. As a former student athlete myself, and it's been a tradition I can carry on over 40 years now. So it's always a fun time when the Spartans and the Pirates get together. And I just want to thank all of you in the press for the coverage that you provide. I'd like to thank my colleagues from Hampton University. We are friends for about 364 days of the year. But on that next day, it's a different ball game. But after the ball game, we're okay. And you know, as student athletes, when you're playing some of your friends from high school, in your own childhood, neighborhoods, it's the same thing. It's just a lot of fun, and we enjoy this event. We're looking forward for a great game. There's a lot of publicity surrounding this game. And the thing about it, I was talking with my colleague, Marshall, about the timing of this game. Of all the years that I've been involved with football and with Norfolk State, I can't remember this being the first conference game of the year between the two schools that I can remember. So it's kind of a different setting for us. But it's going to be an exciting one, and we know it's a very important game for each institution. And I just want to say thank you for being on our campus. We look forward to a great ball game. We wish everyone the best. Hope everyone have a healthy and safe ball game. But at the end of the day, we're still colleagues, we're still brothers, we're still sisters, because that's the way it's always been. So on behalf of Norfolk State University, thank you for your attendance today.
Now it's time to hear from the head football coaches. First up, Connell Maynor is in his second season leading the Pirates. He came to Hampton in 2014 after a successful 4-year stint at Winston-Salem State, where he won 2 CIAA championships. This year, Maynor has the Pirates with a 2-1 overall record and a 1-0 mark in the MEAC. Coach, if you could, please introduce the players you brought with us, and if you could share some thoughts on this week's matchup. After that, we'll open it up for some questions. Again, head coach Connell Maynor from Hampton.
Thank you. Good evening. Good morning. Good evening. It's afternoon now. Afternoon. I brought David Wofford, my quarterback, transfer from UVA, with me, number 2, and Miles Grooms, number 8, our defensive end. Miles was a preseason all-conference pick, and he's playing well right now, so he's leading the defense, and David's leading the offense. So I brought those two guys along. We're glad to be here, glad to be playing this game again. It's a great rivalry. I told, we had our MEAC conference call this morning, and I told the guys on the conference call that I think Norfolk State is the best 0-3 football team in FCS football. You know, they play some very good football teams, and they was in every game at halftime, and just kind of got wore down by the numbers. Those teams had more bullets and more depth, and they kind of just weighed on them there in the second half. But Coach Scott and his staff has done a tremendous job with his players, and you can tell those guys are well coached, they're disciplined, and he's done a tremendous job. And I told my team this is probably could be the best football team that we played all season, and that's including Richmond University. So I hats off to those guys, the job they're doing. You got a great team, great coaching staff, and we got to be at our best this week. We got to be at our best in a rivalry game at their place. It's going to be packed, hostile environment. Norfolk will be licking their chops, ready to play an FCS football team finally. Somebody they know they can compete with for 4 quarters and have a chance to beat. So we have to be at our best. We have to cut down our turnovers. We got to do a better job of tackling on defense and shore up our special teams if we want to beat Norfolk State this week. I'll open it up for questions.
Coach, you first experienced this rivalry last year. Going into it, what did you really know about it, and how much different is it now that you know what it's like?
Well, you don't really know unless you're in it and been in it. You've heard of it, heard about it, but until you experience it, you don't really know. And we had a great experience last year. It was a nice crowd, and they came over and they beat us at our place. So, this is the 53rd meeting, and we got 25 wins. They got 26 wins, 1 tie. So, in order to keep it a great rivalry, we need to even it up to 26, 26, 1, and that'll be just great with me. So, that's the goal.
Of course, with your schedule, you had a big rivalry game last week, and then probably, I'm sure anyway, that the school's 2 biggest rivals week back to back. Is that a tough thing at all to play, 2 rivals that close together?
Well, I mean, it takes a little bit more energy out of you because of all the rah-rah surrounded by rivalry games. It starts early in the week. But for us, it's our next football game, and the next football game is the biggest game. So last week it was Howard, this week it's Norfolk, and whoever we play the week after that, it'd be them. So for us, we're going to prepare the same. It's the biggest game of the season because it's the next game.
Your offense has been moving the ball quite well. In the red zone, you've been very efficient. You mentioned the turnovers, and there was also the penalties. How important is getting those 2 things on the bench?
It's very important. When you play a good football team, you definitely can't afford to turn the ball over, and definitely not 5 times. Norfolk State got a good defense, and if we was turning the ball over 5 times against them, I would be lying if I say I thought we was going to win the football game. So we definitely can't do that this week. We've got to do a better job of reading the coverages, making better decisions with the ball, and holding on to the football from the running back position. We can't get those guys the ball, give them short fields, and keep our defense on the field all night.
Coach, given Norfolk State's schedule so far, how do you measure how good they are?
By how they compete against those guys, and they competed very well in the first half in all their contests, and you can see it. I mean, the teams just didn't dominate them. They just didn't run right through them and do whatever they wanted to do at will against those guys. They fought them, and Rutgers, I think the first 2 drives, like 10, 12 play drives, man. I mean, they was grinding. They had to work for 4 or 5 yards every play. So we know those guys are tough, and they're well coached, and they play hard. They just got, like I said before, those teams just had more scholarships. Had more bullets in their guns and kind of wore them down. The difference is at our level. The difference between our first teamers and second teamers, you can have a big drop off. At that level, it's pretty much the same. When they bring in their backups, they're just as good as their starters, and they don't drop off. And so, therefore, they kind of wear us down in the second half and as the game go on. And that's what kind of happened to Norfolk State, in my opinion, in those 3 games. All right, everybody must be eating.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Now introducing the first-year head coach of the Spartans of Norfolk State University, Latrell Scott. Coach Scott is in his first season after a 2-year run at Virginia State where he led the Trojans to a 19-4 overall record, the 2014 CIAA title and a first-round victory in last year's Division II playoffs. Scott, of course, is quite familiar with this rivalry as he played tight end at Hampton from 1994 to 1998. Coach, if you could, please introduce your players, give us some thoughts on the matchup this weekend, and then we'll open it up again for questions. Latrell, Scott.
Good evening. Thank everybody for coming. It's a huge week for us, for both teams. Brought along with me Trace Humphreys, our starting center. It's kind of the anchor of our offensive line. Deion King, our senior captain linebacker. Deion's the heart and soul of our defense. He's played very well the first 3 weeks of the season, and we need him to continue on that path if we expect to be successful. We'll be joined by our quarterback, Greg Hankerson, who's just finishing up a testing class, so he should be here by the end. Before I begin about the game, I'd like to commend Coach Maynor and the guys over at Hampton. I watch him. I've known David, since he was in high school. We recruited him at the University of Virginia, and obviously you get a chance to see Miles on tape. They're classy young men, and they should be, because that's what they're taught, and then they do a great job representing your school. As far as us, it's been a tough 3 weeks. I'm not excited to be playing Hampton, but I'm excited to be playing FCS football. The first 3 weeks of the season have been a challenge. It's been tough. I tell people all the time, we don't make excuses for losing, because anytime you're a competitor, you're lining up to win a football game, and that hadn't happened. So, in as much as this is a great rivalry, it's a great game. It's our next opportunity to win our first game of the season, and that's what our focus is more so than anything else. But I'm very proud of our young men, the way that they handled themselves. I thought that they competed all 3 games, and I think that we're better for having played those games. We should be battle tested going into Hampton. When you play against those teams, they'll show you what your weaknesses are right away, and they'll expose them, and they did. So we don't make excuses about the 3 losses, and we may be a good 0-3 team, but we are an 0-3 team. Nobody cares how good you are, so we've got to make sure that we do some things that we need to do to get ourselves on track. But it's going to be tough. I got the opportunity to watch the guys play against Howard on Friday night, and you can see it. They're excited. There's a renewed sense of energy over there. They're getting after people. They're scoring points. They're doing all the things that they need to do to be successful. And when you watch David, I know what David's career was like at Virginia. He's having fun again, and it's good to see, because ultimately you want all of our student athletes to have a good collegiate experience. But for me, it's a neat deal. I told my wife last night that I played this game at Foreman Field. I've played this game in Dick Price Stadium, and I've played it over at Hampton. And fortunately, they were all great crowds, good experiences for us all. And the thing that I've done since day one in this rivalry is I've challenged both alumni bases, both communities, to try to sell this football game out. We go over to Old Dominion, it's sold out in front of 21,000. We go to Rutgers, it's 41,000 people. We go to Marshall last week, it's 25,000 people. I think these kids deserve the same type of crowd, and I think it's very important for our communities to get behind these young men and do those types of things to support them. And it's a challenge that I've issued several times to the Hampton alumni base, the Norfolk alumni base, and just everybody in this area, because there's good football being played at these 2 schools, and I think we need to support these guys. But I look forward to this weekend, and it'll be a great event. It'll be a great game. And no matter what the score is, I do know that it'll live up to the classic Battle of the Bay history. So with that being said, I'll take any questions.
What is the rivalry?
Dave, for me, it's our next opportunity to win our first game of the season. It's great. It's great that it's the Battle of the Bay and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't care if we were playing Marty this week. We need to win a football game, and that's the most important thing about it. But I mean, I'll see my teammates here. I'll see people that I went to school with, and I've gotten 100 messages this week saying good luck, but we're not pulling for you. So it's one of those types of things that I'm prepared for, and I'm looking forward to playing the game, as Coach Maynor said, because it's our next game.
Coach, if you thought about how maybe odd it'll feel on Saturday, or do you just go in coach mode at that point and you're coaching your game?
Well, I just got to coach the game. I've had the opportunity to coach against Hampton before at the University of Richmond, and it was at Hampton at that time. But right now I'm committed to Norfolk State University. I'm committed to this group of young men that I lead. So the most important thing for myself and my staff to do is to make sure that we have these guys prepared and ready to play.
You were hired here in, I want to say January, is that right?
Late December.
Late December. When you first saw the schedule and saw who the first three opponents were, did you kind of look at it and go, oh gosh?
I thought it was a typo. No, honestly, it was something that President Moore and Coach Miller, we talked about, and it was something that was done by a previous administration. And at the end of the day, all you can do is come out and play. We knew that we'd be facing the tough challenges, and we started talking to the kids about it right away. And Saturday night when we left Marshall, everybody was still in one piece, everybody was still intact, so we should be better for it.
In all three of those games, you led early. You were headed, well, let's see, yeah, you were headed of Old Dominion in the first half as well. I mean, you guys played them tough early anyway, right?
Well, definitely. I mean, obviously we played pretty well at some spots in the first half, but as we all know, people don't really care about the first half score. They don't give you credit for a half of football, and we've got to make sure that as a football program, we can continue to play for 4 full quarters. And I do believe that if we play for four full quarters, it'll be a competitive game on Saturday.